Okay, yeah, so I was at a convention in Atlanta recently for some things, and while I was there, I picked up a copy of Doom 64. I just started playing it recently, and it got me thinking of a couple of things that I'd like to present to you in video format. Oh, look at that, I just died. Thanks for that. It's all good, I'm good, I feel great.
Yeah.
Okay, fine, no, I'm not great. The world's gone to shit, it cost me $138 to fill up my vehicle with gas. I hate literally every politician. I've lost my early 20s to a pandemic. PS5s aren't in stock, a homeless man called me a pimp. Everybody on the entire planet is sad. So screw it! Let's play video games. Okay, so, here's what makes a good Doom-like. Yeah, well, I mean, duh. Can't really have a good Doom-like without it being an FPS game, obviously. You know? It's not like we can reinvent the wheel. You gotta honor it. Savor it, even. Doom was the backbone of the FPS for years. Let's put some respect on that name. Probably one of the first things you notice when playing a Doom-like. There's a clear sense of power you get from single-handedly ripping and tearing your way through the armies of hell itself. Like, when I sit down and play Dark Souls, I'm playing for the soul-crushing challenge. I'm also usually debating suicide every time I reach Sin's Fortress. When I play Zelda, I play for its charming world, its unique cast of characters. I play for the puzzles. When I play Metal Gear Solid, I'm playing it for its rich and deep story. I play it for the revolutionary stealth mechanics. I play it to watch the ice in the glass melt. But when I play Doom, the only thing I'm there for is for satisfaction. There are few things in the world as satisfying as fast-swapping through all your weapons while gunning down a demon boss, all while BFG Division is playing on full blast. I'm talking Crank 211, my guy. I think this is easily one of the most recognizable aspects of a Doom-like. Take games like Ultra Kill, for instance, though that's more of a Quake meets Devil May Cry type game. I think it's close enough for comparison here. Any game that allows you to flip a coin and shoot it out the air to take down enemies is definitely leaning to the whole power fantasy aspect. Let's be real. But even besides that, just look at games like Turbo Overkill or Bullets Per Minute or Dust. Okay, yeah, so I'm gonna be real. I kind of just started ranting here, and I didn't really know how to end this segment naturally, so. How does one go about the act of perfectly encompassing the feeling of killing demons in hell? Well, lucky for you, Mick Gordon has already answered that question. Metal. Time and time again, he has been providing us with some of the most hardcore soundtracks in all of gaming. The music needs to be real heavy and dark, and I'm talking ball-busting, high-octane, pure gasoline-chugging goodness. There is no alternative. These games are power fantasies, and the soundtrack should reflect that in every way possible. Momentum is so important here. Without this aspect, a Doom-like would very quickly just become like every other FPS. Slow, weighty, and downright sluggish. World War II shooters really warped our perspective on how players should feel when moving. Before, we had motherfuckers walking around like they had 2 ice blocks duct taped to their feet. The gameplay should be fast and always moving. I'm talking Sonic speeds, man. There's honestly very few points in Doom that you have to slowly walk through an environment. When enemies are around, you're expected to use every tool at your disposal to achieve victory, and one of the most important tools at your disposal is your ability to dodge and maneuver your way into enemy range. Very key. Fluid movement is the basis of a good movement shooter, and with a good Doom-like, or Doom clone, it needs to retain that sense of speed and constant movement the original was built around. After playing a good Doom-like, every other FPS you play should feel slower in comparison.
Huh. Well, that's new.
I feel like a lot of people miss out on this talking point when bringing up good movement shooters, and I genuinely don't know why. At least for me personally, this is one of the most important aspects of, well, just game design in general. FromSoft is out here designing some of the most beautiful and clever levels in gaming history. But even looking at the original Doom, you can see a level of forethought put into each and every creative decision that works amazingly well within the limitation of, like, 2 megabytes? My profile picture is 4 megabytes. When co-founder of id Software John Romero was designing levels for the original Doom, he had a list of 8 rules to strictly follow so that levels would look and play as good as possible. Here's a couple. I'd like to go over these in more detail in a separate video, so look out for that in the future. Number 1. Make areas flow so that the player revisits areas to better understand the 3D space. Most areas are designed in loops so that players will revisit areas they previously explored. Use contrast between light and dark areas and cramped and open areas. Create several easily recognizable landmarks for easier navigation. Make sure that if the player can see outside, he can somehow get there. When combined, these rules make an essential bible for level design within this genre of games that I feel really stands out even today among modern titles. Even still though, there's something important missing. You can spend all the time you want designing a good functioning environment, mapping out hallways to create the best path for the player. But without something to do in that level, what's the purpose? Well, I guess Doom solved this problem pretty quickly. When in doubt, just throw some demons in it. But really, what's a Doom level without all the hordes of demons to tear through from top to bottom? It's important for a game's cast of enemies to never get stale. I ran into this issue a lot with Breath of the Wild, where that game was vast and open-ended with enemy encounters, which do allow for a great variation in the amount of solutions there are for winning a battle. I felt as if there wasn't enough variation in the enemies themselves. The game takes place over a wide area of land, and it just doesn't make sense for every part of Hyrule to just have the same bunch of moblins and bokoblins. Enemy designs should reflect the area that they're in and provide visual representation for the story that you're trying to tell. Doom does this pretty well though. For example, did you know that in Doom, the only enemy type that drops ammo for your weapons are the zombies? Which obviously makes sense considering that former humans are the only enemies that actually make sense to drop ammo. The designs of these monsters is rooted in a key element that makes each design unique and work well within the established mechanics of the game. The Lost Soul enemy type is another good example of making the design work within its intended purpose. It's literally just a floating, flaming skull, and it has an extremely recognizable silhouette, so it can instantly be recognized upon encounter. These things usually travel in packs and will fly towards and rush the player at high speeds, but the thing about them is that they only rush you in straight lines, so if you dodge an incoming attack, the Lost Souls will go careening into the nearest wall or surface. They also have very little health, so dealing with them is very quick. But you see what I mean, right? They have a very simple and explicit purpose that is instantly readable to the player. No tutorials needed on how to defeat these guys, just quick in the moment thinking aided by good and simple design. Also, I should add, reskin mechanics are not new mechanics. Mechanical design for enemies is important and can be used very well to instill a sense of progression within the player. Enemies should have well-rounded and distinct behaviors and mechanics that let designers compose fun and satisfying combat scenarios that challenge the player. Speaking of interacting mechanics between the enemies and player, let's move on to our final section of the video, the combat. Doom is well known for its memorable weapons. Think the big fucking gun, the super shotgun, the unmaker, the rocket launcher, the chainsaw man. Every weapon should be interesting and change how you approach taking down an enemy. Give players a toy box and let them go wild. Puzzles and item gathering tend to get a little tedious in boomer shooters, so if you want to give a new item, make it a big event, but without stopping the game too much. A great example is getting your super shotgun back in Doom Eternal. You're dropped into a pit, kill all the enemies, then you take control of a revenant and have it retrieve your super shotgun. It takes a simple situation and adds flavor to it by creating a memorable gameplay experience with a fucking awesome ending. I also think it's super important to pay attention to the sound design here when it comes to these types of games. Every gun should sound meaty, hefty, fucking big. Just helps, you know? The other aspect of Doom combat comes into play with the game's melee combat. Nowadays, Doomlikes of all shapes and sizes have found new and interesting ways to iterate on this mechanic, but stepping back a bit and taking a look at Doom, the first one, sets a good baseline for what makes melee in these games work. In the original Doom, your fists were about as strong as the pistol, nothing too crazy, but enough to get the job done when you're low on resources and are in a tight spot. However, if you found the Berserk power-up in a level, your character flies into a blinding rage, coating the screen with red. With this power-up active, which lasts the entirety of the level or until you die, your fists do significantly more damage, about 10 times stronger, and with this power-up, melee combat becomes one of the most fun ways to play the game. Since the dawn of the Doomlike, we've gotten a bunch of crazy takes on the genre. I don't have enough time to go super in depth with all of them, but real quick, here's some of my favorites. I'll try to stick to recommendations I haven't seen in other videos, so hopefully you can come out of this with a new game to play. Alright. Boom. Forgive me, Father. A cool dark retro horror FPS with a really cool art style. It reminds me a lot of the Darkest Dungeon visual style. This one's great if you're really into Lovecraftian type horror. BPM, or bullets per minute. A rhythm action FPS roguelike where everything from running, jumping, to shooting must be done to the beat of the music. This game's really cool and satisfying once you get into the groove of it. Dusk. This one absolutely nails the 90s retro FPS style. The atmosphere in this game is incredible, a perfect blend of a badass power fantasy mixed with an unnerving sense of dread. Gunplay feels tight and solid, and overall a pretty good game. I've been working on this video for a while now, and it took longer than initially expected because I sort of moved across the country in the middle of making this. There was a bunch of stuff that I wanted to talk about, but either couldn't find a good place to put it, or I'm saving it for another video. So if you enjoyed this, I'd really appreciate a like and a sub. Also, for those of you who stayed till the end, here's a Steam key for Doom Eternal. There's only one, so the first person to see this I imagine will get the code, so better be quick about it.